Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we are tackling a critically important, super high yield topic for part 1 of your CMA exam, data management and governance. Now look, take a deep breath. I know that when we see the word data, especially sitting right next to governments, it can trigger a bit of anxiety. You might be sitting there thinking, hold on, I'm studying to be a management accountant, not some IT wizard. But honestly, don't worry, I'm right here to guide you through this. We are going to break the whole thing down into clear, manageable, and highly testable concepts so you can walk into that test center with absolute confidence. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our clear, structured roadmap for our study session today. First, why data matters. Then, the data lifecycle, master data management, quality and governance roles, security, ethics, and privacy, and we'll wrap up with some CMA exam success tips. All right, section 1, why data matters, and connecting it to our financial reality. Remember, you are training to be an accountant, not a database administrator. But as a CMA, your modern financial planning, performance evaluation, and analytics, they depend entirely on the quality of your organization's underlying data. Think about it for a second. If your sales forecast is feeding off wildly inaccurate customer data, or say there are duplicate revenue records floating around your system, well, your variance analysis is completely compromised right out of the gate. You just can't make good strategic decisions with bad data. And this brilliantly illustrates the foundation of everything we'll discuss today, the core distinction between data governance and data management. Think of data governance as your company's constitution. It's the high-level policy answering the big question, who makes the rules and sets accountability? Data management, on the other hand, is the execution of that constitution. It's the tactical, day-to-day action answering, how do we actually execute, control, and maintain this data cleanly and securely? The ICMA really wants you to know that governance is the policy and management is the practice. Moving right along, section 2, the data lifecycle, the predictable path of data. Let's move to and see how this builds. The ICMA expects you to grasp that data is incredibly dynamic. It isn't just a static thing that sits in a digital folder forever. It's born, it's used, and eventually it has to be disposed of across 5 chronological stages. Step 1 is creation and collection. That's where accurate raw data is captured right at the source, usually entering the system through an ERP or CRM. Step 2 is processing and storage. Here, that raw data gets cleansed, organized for speed and security, and safely saved. Step 3 is analysis and usage. This is your time to shine. It's where you, the management accountant, extract business intelligence for budgeting and financial modeling. Step 4 is retention and archiving. We don't just keep data on our active servers until the end of time, right? We store it securely to balance operational costs with strict legal compliance, like tax record rules. And finally, disposal. To mitigate risk, data absolutely must be permanently and safely purged when it's legally and operationally no longer needed. Section 3. Master data management, the single source of truth. Guys, this is a massive concept for your exam. Whenever you see a multiple choice question referring to a single source of truth, like a unified, flawless record across an entire enterprise, I want alarms going off in your head shouting, Master Data Management, MDM. To understand why it's so vital, look at the reality for a lot of large companies where data is just trapped in disconnected silos. You get this real-world accounting nightmare where the sales team has one address and billing profile for a client, while the accounting team has a completely different one. It's chaos. Master Data Management solves this. It acts as the ultimate framework that links all enterprise data to a central master record. It ensures that when you pull a revenue report, literally everyone, from sales to operations to accounting, is working from identical, validated metrics. Section 4, Quality and Governance Roles, ensuring data integrity. Because bad data leads to bad decisions, the ICMA expects you to act as a quality controller. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this 5-star checklist is literally your ultimate visual study guide for test day. You gotta memorize these 5 attributes. First, accuracy. Does the data correctly reflect reality? If a $10,000 invoice is accidentally typed in as $100,000, well, that's an accuracy failure. Completeness. Are any mandatory elements missing, like leaving a tax ID blank? Timeliness. Is the data available when you actually need it for decision-making? I mean, monthly sales data arriving 2 weeks after the period closes is pretty much useless. Consistency. Is it uniform across systems, like using US dollars in System A and euros in System B? And validity. Does it conform to defined business rules? This ensures someone isn't, say, entering text into a numerical date field. Mark my words, you need to know these inside and out. So we know what data quality looks like, but here is the critical next question.
who is actually responsible for ensuring that quality? I mean, systems don't govern themselves, people do. Let's look at the human element of data control, breaking down the three distinct governance roles you'll definitely see on the exam.
The first role is the data owner. And listen, this is not the person sitting at their desk entering the data on their keyboard. The data owner is a high-level, senior executive, policymaker. They are responsible for the overarching policy, the classification, and the ultimate accountability of a specific data domain. For example, your chief financial officer, they're the data owner for the organization's financial data. They make the rules. Next is the data steward. If the owner writes the Constitution, the steward is the one who enforces it. The data steward is a tactical expert. They're responsible for operational data quality, making sure the definitions are crystal clear, and actually enforcing those data rules on a day-to-day basis. Think of them as the boots on the ground, ensuring the CFO's policies are actually being followed out there in the real world.
Finally, we have the data custodian. Notice how this sounds just a bit different? The custodian handles the IT side of the equation. These are your IT professionals who maintain the technical infrastructure. They're handling the actual servers, the routine backups, and the physical security of the data centers. They aren't really worried about the business meaning of the data. They're just worried about keeping the servers running safely. So keep these three, owner, steward, and custodian, clearly separated in your mind.
Section 5. Security, Ethics, and Privacy. Protecting the enterprise. All of this careful, meticulous management fails completely if your sensitive financial or customer data gets leaked, corrupted, or stolen. I mean, we're talking about an instant derailment of your entire financial operation if internal controls aren't strictly enforced. So the crucial point is understanding role-based access control, or RBAC. I've seen so many candidates struggle with this, but I guarantee you're going to see this concept on your exam. RBAC ensures employees only access data strictly necessary for their specific job function. Simply put, the marketing intern should absolutely not have access to unreleased quarterly payroll data. It's a vital, non-negotiable internal control for preventing fraud, unauthorized changes, and accidental data corruption. Now, beyond internal controls, you've got to be aware of the external pressures. As a CMA, you are expected to understand that your data retention policies have to comply with massive statutory regulations. This includes things like GDPR for consumer data protection and privacy, as well as the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, specifically Section 404, which mandates strict internal controls over financial reporting. You're constantly walking a tightrope, balancing the legal need to retain data for SOX with the ethical standards of consumer privacy. And finally, Section 6, CMA Exam Success Tips. Basically your cheat codes for test day. Incredible job following along so far, folks. You have absorbed a massive amount of highly testable information today. When you're sitting in that testing center, keep these three distinct study hacks in mind. First, don't confuse governance with architecture. Remember, governance is about policy, accountability, and the human roles we just discussed. Architecture and database management systems, those are the technical hardware tools. Second, if a question asks how to prevent duplicate records or entry errors right at the source, your eyes should immediately scan the answers for master data management or validation controls. And third, always remember the context. Link data management back to the bigger picture: financial decision-making, operational efficiency, and risk reduction. You are fully prepared to tackle these questions. I know you can do it. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder as you continue your studies. Look at the data flowing through your own organization right now. If it were audited today with all its strengths and all its flaws, would it be your greatest management asset or your biggest financial liability? Master this material and you'll always ensure it's the former. Strong data leads to strong management accounting. Keep practicing those multiple choice questions, stay focused, and I'll see you in the next explainer.